Good afternoon, good evening, or good morning. My name is Marie Renvelez with USC Visions and Voices, the Arts and Humanities Initiative. I use she, her pronouns, and for access purposes, I describe myself as a cisgendered woman, Filipino Asian American with warm beige skin, round face, slightly uneven ear-length black hair that needs a trim, wearing rounded brown glasses, a dark charcoal button-up top, and I'm standing in the corner of a room, which is my small home office space, in front of a white wall with some Visions and Voices artwork. Welcome and thank you for joining us for today's event, Masters of the Currents, a conversation with the creators and cast. I've been looking forward to this event, and I truly cherish the work of the artists who are joining us and speaking today. We have people tuning in from across the country and around the world, and at Visions and Voices, we believe it's important to open our events by acknowledging the Indigenous land that we share. By presenting conversations like the one we have today, part of the work that we do is to make the invisible visible. The Visions and Voices program is based at the University of Southern California in Los Angeles, and we acknowledge that our campuses were built on the ancestral and unceded lands of the Tongva, Chumash, and Kizh nations. We honor them and all Indigenous people, past, present, and future, and we pay respect to their continued survival and contributions to our society. We also honor the legacy of the African diaspora and recognize that this country would not exist without the free enslaved labor of Black people. The colonization of this land reflects systems of power upon which this country was founded and which continue to operate today, resulting in systemic oppression, violence against people of the global majority, and glaring inequities for disabled individuals and communities. We share these acknowledgements to raise awareness about the histories that are too often erased or forgotten, to recognize our place in this history, and to affirm our commitment to social change. We invite you to help us continue this practice of acknowledging and honoring Indigenous land and people. So in the chat, please share the names of the Indigenous lands that you're on. And if you don't know, we recommend looking it up at native-land.ca, and we just put the link in the chat. I also want to take a moment to address the increase in harassment and violence against Asian, Pacific Islander, and Desi American communities in the past year. As a woman, a daughter, a tita, and an advocate for the arts and human rights, this has been a painful time to witness and process the recent events in Atlanta, New York, the Bay Area, and really across the country. This violence is not new and reflects over 150 years of policies of exclusion and imperialism. At Visions and Voices, we stand in solidarity with the Asian, Pacific Islander, and Desi American communities, and we will continue to uphold the arts as a means for confronting racism, sexism, and other forms of oppression and violence, and as a tool for creating awareness and change. And one really great example of this is the piece that brings us here tonight. 2 years ago, I had the privilege of traveling to Minneapolis to see Masters of the Currents by TeAda Productions. And it was a life-giving experience to not only learn about Micronesians in the United States through theater, but also to experience it with the community that was seeing itself represented on stage for the first time. You see, with TeAda, the performance is only half of the experience. The other half is their community work. They bring in the people who help shape and inform the work, the people that this work is about, and all this is done in a way that is so caring and so beautiful. There really is a lot to talk about, so let's go ahead and bring on our first guests tonight, Leilani Chan and Ova Saopeng of TeAda Productions, who are co-creators and collaborators on Masters of the Currents. I won't read their bios, but they are included in the theme guide for this event. But I will share that before I joined the Visions and Voices staff, I worked closely with Leilani and Ova at TeAda for a couple of years. Welcome, hi.
Hi,
Hi.
it's good
To
to
see you. Thank you for having
Yeah, good. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for joining us. It's so wonderful to have you. I'll just start and say Masters of the Currents is a beautiful show. So, Leilani and Ova, could you begin with talking about TeAda and your work and how Masters of the Currents came to be?
Well, TeAda Productions is a nomadic theater of color based in Los Angeles, but we also tour and travel a lot of times working with communities to develop plays and working with communities to also stage their stories. And we specifically focus on working with underserved communities or communities that are not appearing in the mainstream or on the main stage of American theater. So we have worked with a lot of specifically immigrant and refugee communities, as well as indigenous communities, like Masters of the Currents. And I'll hand it to you to talk about Masters.
Sure. Masters of the Currents is just an amazing piece because it's one of the first pieces that does highlight the Micronesian community. The inspiration for the show is that both Leilani and I actually were rooted in terms of our arts and our beginning in Hawaii. And we've been artists and have come to the continent for college and then realized that as we were creating work, through TeAda, like Refugee Nation, which is with the Lao American community, and Global Taxi Driver with Somali community, and working with communities here, we have never had an opportunity to develop or share work in Hawaii. So this was a beautiful project where we were able to return back and give back to the community there. And I grew up in Kalihi, where the setting of the play takes place. And in Honolulu and Hawaii itself, it is like it is the entry point for refugees and immigrants to the United States from the Asia Pacific Rim. So a lot of new folks come in. Personally, for me, my inspiration was also the fact that being a refugee myself from Laos, coming into Hawaii during the 1970s and 80s, I really resonated with this new community that was new to me. I mean, Leilani and I would visit Hawaii, and as we would go back, we realized there were new people coming to Hawaii, a different wave. And so that was where we met Innocenta Soundkiku, who is now a cast member, but also wonderfully an important person who became our what we call our cultural navigator in the project. The piece was developed in about 2 to 3 years, working with the community there, seeking performers, seeking storytellers, and finding people who were interested and wanted to really help develop the piece. So that's Masters of the Currents, and we've been fortunate to be able to one of our biggest things was finding cast members from the community and realizing that representation is really, really important.
Yeah, and because we it took us about at least 3 years of going back and forth to Hawaii, working with Inocenta as our cultural navigator. She really laid the groundwork for us. And without us even knowing it, she did protocol with the elders to make sure it was okay for us to collect stories from the community. And because we took that long developing the work, doing workshops, we did a couple community performances that we asked everyone who participated with us to perform with us. And that was like 30 people per community sharing. That by the time we were ready to cast the touring production, and we premiered at Honolulu Theater for Youth with our touring production, a cast of 5 members, 4 out of 5 of the cast members were Micronesian, and they all participated in our workshops and community development process. So we're really proud of that, and now we're all a touring family together.
That's really wonderful. I think actually I feel like I remember when you since we have a history, I feel like I do remember when you met Innocenta and Mama Ino and I remember feeling your feeling of like this story needs to be shared. And it's really amazing to see that journey. Um,
There, I just realized that you were on the board and you were there. That's amazing. That's awesome.
Exactly. Exactly. I was there. I remember that so clearly. It was such a, it's always been a transformative experience to work on, to like have been a part of TeAda for the time. So is it okay that we go ahead and share the first 8 minutes? So everyone, we have a short or no, an 8 minute excerpt of the beginning of Masters of the Currents on video. And so this was, as I cue this up, this was filmed in Minneapolis. And here we go.
There is nothing micro about Micronesia. We have big families, we have big minds, and we have big hearts. Micronesia is a term some European explorer assigned to us on a map, but our people are more than just dots on a map. We've been given the big responsibility to steward the Pacific Ocean, the largest body of water on the planet Earth. Micronesia makes over 2,000 islands that span the Pacific. It is bigger than the US continent. There is nothing micro about us! Micronesia is more than just the FSM, the Federated States of Micronesia, which includes Koshrai, Pohnpei, Chuk, and Yap. Micronesia stretches all the way from Palau on one end to the Marshall Islands on the other. And there is also Saipan and Guam, Nauru and Satawal and Kiribati and too many islands to name. I couldn't name them all here. Our people are so diverse in language and in culture that when you ask us, are you Micronesian? You get this blank look. Because we would say we are
Chukis,
or
Koshayan,
or
Marshallese,
or Pohnpeian. And then we would say, hey, what island you from, huh?
Lukuno, Wadan, Koshai,
Majuro,
And what part of the island, huh?
Lukala, Dunuk, Melon.
I don't know.
With all this beauty and pride, why would we leave our islands? Why would we leave our beautiful homes? We are masters of the currents, ocean navigators. It's in our blood to travel the globe. Yet we all yearn to return home. But nowadays, some of us cannot, for some of our islands are disappearing. Some of our islands have been destroyed by US nuclear bomb testing. And in exchange, they offer us the COFA agreement, which promised us to rebuild, to educate, and to medicate. Broken promises. So we must leave. Micronesia to Hawaii are thousands of miles away. You can fly from Guam or Saipan, or you can island hop from Koshrai to Pohnpei to Chuk, all the way to Honolulu, Hawaii. Now, in the old days, we would sail everywhere because the ocean is our highway. We would go from one island to the other on our canoes just like this. Everybody ready? Paddles up. Amua!
Nale!
Amua!
Nale!
Amua!
Nale!
Amua!
Nale!
Sail! And we arrived in Hawaii. Let me introduce you to Eva.
Hi!
And this is Alonso.
How's it? I was born and raised here in Hawaii, but my mom came from Kauai and my dad's from Pohnpei.
I was born in the Marshall Islands, and I came to Hawaii when I was 8 years old.
Now, they're here because
Both my parents came here for jobs, college, but they stayed for my education.
My mom and my grandfather needed medical treatment.
And let me introduce you to Sosofina.
We call her Soso.
She just arrived here from Chok.
I'm in.
Hey, don't be shy. Come sit. You see, living in Hawaii is good fun. I live up in Papakolea, and every day after school I play basketball, football, any kind, bro. Good fun.
And you see, Hawaii is a whole lot better than wherever you came from. Because whatever you like, you can get. Just go to the store and buy food, clothes.
Medicine?
Yeah, and medicine. In fact, you don't even have to wait a whole week to get it.
And we have toilets inside the house. You don't have to. All you gotta do is.
You mean I don't have to paddle all the way to the mangrove in the middle of the night just to do my business?
Ew, no.
And it's more sanitary. Oh, and we've got strong Wi-Fi.
What's this?
Whoa, that was fast. Oh, you see, you can never get bored here in Hawaii. I mean, there's so much to do. We've got the mall. We even have McDonald's.
This is like the go-to island.
Oahu, specifically. All you gotta do is just get on the bus and go to step out anywhere.
We call it Sein Intergis.
All plans bus?
Because everybody takes it.
You see old people, young people,
Chinese people, Japanese people, Haole people.
Hawaiian, Samoan, Tongans.
Everybody takes the bus. Oh, and the best thing about you're so gonna love school! Yes!
Wait, what? No, don't believe her, Soso. School is boring.
Excuse me, Alonso? I love school.
That's because you get good grades.
You could too if you studied.
One thing though, Soso.
Yes?
Don't wear that shower curtains to school.
Alonso!
Shower curtain?
He's talking about your skirt.
No! My grandma made this for me before I left our island. It tells our family story. I have to wear it so I can take her with me to school.
Just don't do it if you don't want to get beat up.
And another thing, Soso, try working on your English. My suggestion, only speak English and never your island language. I mean, it is the only way to learn English fluently.
And get good grades like Eva.
Thanks, Alonso.
You're welcome.
Anyway, Soso, I know you're gonna do great, okay? I'll see you at school. Bye!
And I gotta meet up with the boys at the court, so shoots, get ends, no worry, beef curry.
Beef curry?
Okay, I think I can speak for Visions and Voices when I say that we're really hopeful about reopening safely in the coming months, and so that we can present this piece in person. So let's bring the rest of the cast of Masters of the Currents up so we can open up this conversation. Hi, Mama Ino, Jaceline, Emerald, hi, and Jermaine.
Guys, good job.
Great work. I mean, as I mentioned, I saw this in Minneapolis and really loved it. So why don't we just start with introductions? If the cast members can introduce yourselves, where you're from, where you are now, and how you got involved with Masters of the Currents.
Renalam, everyone. I guess I'll go first. I am Innocenta Sound Kiku. Everyone calls me Mama Ino. I actually joined Master of the Current from Hawaii. It all started with meeting Ova and Leilani on the beach when they were having a retreat for some of their artists. And I was introduced to them and just talk story and sharing about all the experiences we have, and we kind of like hit it off right away, and we became real good friends. And then over a few months, I think, I got a call from Ova asking me to if we can do Master of the Current. And I keep thinking, what Master of the Current? I'm trying to figure out, I talk so much about this code which one of our elders share with us. And I want to honor him by also mentioning his name, Tamana Poli Otoko. And he was the one who shared about, we used to be masters of the current, but today we are slaves to the currencies of the United States. And that just hit my heart. And I know that when I shared the story with Leilani and Ova, they were also, they got impacted by that story alone. And, I forgot all about it if Ova didn't call me up in the middle of the night that one time and bring me back to it. I would definitely forgot. But, it also makes me think about how much, they really, wanted to come back and give back to the community, and just where they started, and just the idea of that really warms my heart, and our friendship grew from there. Our conversation continued, and I bought into the dream building with them, and then that's how it became a reality, because we make it so personal for all of us, and just the fact that we wanted to make a difference and tell our story, and that's how it all began. So yeah, thank you very much for having me.
And where are you representing from, Mama Ino? Where are you representing from? Where are you from?
I was just gonna say that that I'm tuning in from Hawaii, but I represent a huge community of the Micronesians, especially the Chukis here in Kalihi especially. So, Kilisa Shapur and mahalo. Thank you, Ova.
Thank you, Mama Ino. Jaceline, I have you start or continue, I mean.
Sure. All right. Radanim. My name is Jaceline Ifanuk. Sorry, it's been a hard day. I am Chukis. I was born in Chuk. I grew up in Kalihi, Hawaii, and I am now on the land of Ahan Chuyuk and Kalapuya in Oregon. I got involved later on in the process with Masters of the Currents. I received an invitation one day from Mama Ino, and the invitation was worded where I thought I was coming to a space of storytelling. I thought I was just gonna listen to others coming with stories. And my great-grandfather had just passed then, and that was one of the most important things that I used to do with my great-grandfather, is just sit around him and listen to him talk stories. So that I wanted to go. So I showed up, and it was totally different from what I expected. They had me doing hands movement and talking at the same time. And it was different. It was awkward for me. I was up on stage, and if you know me, I would never have done anything like that. I avoided the drama club my high school years. But at the same time, it was healing. As a Micronesian growing up in Hawaii, I went through a lot. So sharing about personal experiences and what our community go through in a creative way kind of takes away the negativities of it. So to me, it was healing. So when I was asked to be a cast member, I was nervous. I knew it was going to be mind-boggling, especially for someone like me who most of it are in here. But I took it on first as a challenge. Second, for the youth in Kalihi, in Hawaii, the Micronesian youth who are growing up outside of Micronesia in a totally new environment. And that's what kept me going till today. And that's how I got involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaceline. Why don't we just take a breath and we can all have a moment and just breathe in and breathe out. Thank you. Yes.
If I can I want to just say the reason why it's particularly hard today. I haven't even had a chance to talk to Jace today. But there was a murder of a Micronesian youth in Hawaii through police brutality. And that happened yesterday. So a lot of us are processing through this, but especially, Senta, who's in Hawaii, and Jaceline are both community organizers. So they're on the front lines of this, working with the community. So I just wanted to mention that. But I am so appreciative of y'all being here because we're so excited to have this platform to talk about this work, because it definitely relates to how Micronesians are portrayed in the media and what they're facing in regards to racial profiling and other discrimination in Hawaii. So I just want to put that in there. We love you, Jace. Thank you for being here. You're so strong.
And thank you, Leilani, for giving us the context of today and how it may affect each and every one of us, or each and every one on this panel. So thank you. Can I pass it on to either Emerald, Rose, or Jermaine?
Yeah, hi. So I am Emerald Rose Haddock, and I am coming in from Alaska today. I was born and raised in the islands. I was born and raised in Kushai my whole life, probably half of it right now. And I moved to Hawaii the same year that Leilani and Ova were going around asking for people to join in on a storytelling, the same one that I met Jaceline in, and the same one that she went to. And we both thought we were going there to listen to people tell stories, because I was excited because I came straight out of the plane. I was fresh and I was new in Hawaii. So I was excited to be around a lot of Micronesians. I was just be around people I know, actually. When I got there, same thing happened to me. Leilani and Ova said, "Psych, we're not telling stories. You're telling stories by action." Which I love, because I actually did a lot of theater work in high school. I did a lot of drama. I did a lot of acting. I liked performing. So I enjoyed a lot of that. But I did go there thinking I was going to be telling stories. And so for future, what Leilani and Ova did, if you want a lot of Islanders, tell them you're doing storytelling. You will see a lot of Islanders show up. That's one way to get them. But yeah.
Aloha. I guess I'm next. How was it? My name is Jermaine. I am coming in from Kalihi, Hawaii. What's up? What's up? When I first met Ova and Leilani, I was still in high school. I was in the local theater group, T-shirt theater. And the director, George Khan, I was talking to him one night, and somehow the conversation came up, and I mentioned I was Micronesian. Then he brought up, oh, they're doing the same thing, a workshop, uh, over in Leilani at Farrington, and that's when I also met Emerald and Jaceline for the first time. And I did that at the beginning. I was like, wow, it felt weird for me to be here. I didn't want to identify as Micronesian because, just the history of what I've been through and everyone's been through. So I was like shy about it. But throughout the workshop, towards the end of the day, I felt more comfortable with the people I was, who I was, and just who I was representing, And I was like, dang, I'm so happy to be a Micronesian. And when I first became a cast member, I just graduated from high school. I was living in Saipan, and I just received a text from Ova saying, it was like something like, do you want to be a part of our cast or something? Now I was stoked. I just big smile on my face. I felt blushing. I thought we were, flirting, but no. So it's just he asked me if I wanted to be a part of the cast, and I was like, yeah. I jumped right at the moment, and then ever since then, back in 2018, I was just so happy to be a part of this group. So yeah, that's me. Aloha.
Thank you. So this play premiered at Honolulu Theater for Youth with a 3-week run attended by over 3,000 youth, I'm told. So the question is, how did the Micronesian community in Hawaii respond to Masters of the Currents? Do you have a specific story or a conversation that you had with people that they shared after seeing the show?
Sorry, I didn't realize I was on mute. But when the show first came out, I was a youth worker at Susanna Wesley Community Center in the heart of Kalihi. And growing up in Hawaii until I became a youth worker, there was kind of this a shame of showing that we are Micronesians. Before we even step out of the house, we would change into, if we're wearing our skirts, we would change into pants just to avoid the negativity and the negative comments that come once people realize that we are Micronesians. So after the show, a lot of the youth would show up at the youth center that I was at, and they would come in cheerfully with their skirts, showing me their skirts that they wore to school, or their combs that they're wearing in their hairs. And they want to have a conversation, about being proud of being a Micronesian. And then eventually it became a skirt wearing Friday. The girls would come together and we would wear our skirts. They would go to school with them, and they would send me pictures. And a lot of the youth I knew, but there were also some that didn't know me. But after the show, they came to the center to find me, just to find, they're finding themselves now, and they want to be able to just talk about it. And those had a huge impact on me. But what resonated with me till this day was during the shows, we would have Hawaiian charter schools. They would bring their students, or the school would come out. And I had a co-worker who was a firefighter also. And one day he brought his kids to work. And they were in one of the smaller rooms, but when I passed by, they jumped out of their seats and they're like, oh my goodness, you were in that show. So I went in and sat with them, and these kids are not familiar with the Micronesian community, they never heard of it until that show. But as I sat down, they were making comments, and they're really young. They're making comments like, why are people so mean? And it's moments like that that resonated with me, and just how much this show has impacted a lot of our youth.
And Eno, you wanted to say something as well about how a community was affected by the play?
Yes, I think everybody was just blown away when they saw first themselves on stage, and to even have the teachers and students come up to us and share how much in the story or the play really resonate with them. But what also makes it even more relevant is to if started to have partners of Hawaiian kids or other nationality that went to see the play, and at their school now they advocate for us and stand up and say that's not right. And I remember a kid that was also involved with the Pacific Voices that opens our show, and he was like really intrigued by the stick dance that started, that he wanted to participate. And with the work that I do at Kokoakali Valley Clinic to also with our Pacific Voices to advocate and share our story in the school, they remembered and they wanted to be participating in the activities. And then just being involved in that and see the show really makes them realize that it is true, this is not right, and for them to stand up for their Pacific Island cousin. That for me is a huge impact of what this play has done. And on top of that, as we also tour, we go to different places and we see we get recognized of by our audience, and they hear us speaking our language, and then when we hear them responding from the audience, that's like we have Chukis in the house, or like we didn't realize that they drive from places like far from all over the continent to come and see the show. And all of that just tells us how especially this story, it also connects everybody from different places wherever they at, and the experiences and influence that they see. So I think that it's mind-blowing what is really going on, and we just love it and appreciate what is happening with our community, especially with our youngster, to be proud of something that is not there before, and to reverend it to TeAda, our master of the current. That's amazing.
I mean, I also want to mention that, watching the video, there's a baby crying, but that's still quieter than when you have actual Chukis or Micronesians or Pacific Islanders in the audience. When we first did the show, well, first of all, when we first did the show for the youth, and the line where Jermaine as Alonso says, "School is boring," like the first school show, the entire audience just like went up and applauded. We had to like wait a good long time for them to settle down before we could get rolling. And then when we did the show in Hilo, University of Hawaii Hilo, the Performing Arts Center there does a great job of involving the Micronesian and Pacific Islander community. And so we had a full theater, and Ova couldn't get through that first monologue because every time he said the name of the island, a group in the audience stood up and cheered. And then when they said hello in that language, that group cheered again. And it was just happening all over the audience. It took us a good much longer to get through that one monologue. But this is how we at TeAda like to think of decolonizing theater. We think of you have to be quiet and that's good performance. But now we've learned like, oh my God, why are they so quiet? Because we expect a call and response, and that'll happen if there's people in the audience who reflect the people on stage.
I also just want to add on to what Mama Ino talked about. In the recent years, I've seen just unity amongst our youth, especially in Kalihi. Both years with the Micronesian Youth Summit by WOW, I brought a group of youth, and they were a mixture of Chukis, kids from across the Micronesia, and Samoan kids, just kids in Kalihi in general. And we got there, and there was one activity where they had to separate the kids into where they're from. So then they also added Samoans, because I guess they were anticipating that there will also be other kids from the Pacific Islands. But the Samoan kids that were there were like, oh, no, miss, we're Chukis, and just even going as far as like wanting to know what part of Chuk should I say I'm from. And I'm from Tunuk. So I was like, okay, you better say you're from Tunuk. But just, they're yearning to learn about their other peers and to be to just be included in the whole thing. And there's so much unity with our youth that is just covered up by all this negativity that I hope us as a whole community can support it.
Right. Like, I think that there is a lot of power to being able to be represented by people from your own community, and also in a way where if you had only seen something that's only negatively portrayed, to be able to kind of see multiplicity, because I think that is definitely a part of like what we believe in at Visions of Voices, that the arts really help us see each other as human beings, like as full human beings. That's where I think like a lot of the power of this piece is. So I want to open up to Emerald, Rosa, and Jermaine about if you want to share anything about other stops on the tour that you've been able to experience, San Francisco, Minnesota, or if you want to talk about like what it's like to tour as young artists.
Yeah. Oh man, I think my favorite stop so far, actually they're all my favorite. We did one in Kona that was not a part of our actual tour, but we just went out of our way to go to one of I believe it was an elementary school down in Kona. So we drove a couple hours there. And when we got there, it was just a couple of, I'd say 20 some kids in a very small room. We were able to do the same excerpt. Yeah, a middle school. We were able to perform the same excerpt that we just showed. And it was mind blowing. I mean, I personally thought that it wasn't going to go that well. I mean, we didn't have our set with us. We didn't have lighting. We didn't have like the beautiful things behind us. And it was because of that and the reaction we got from the audience, the fact that we didn't have all of our background and everything like that, but the audience still enjoyed so much. I mean, they were clapping, they were like doing the same thing. They were screaming out hello and all in their native language when we were in that opening. And they were all just middle schoolers. And we did that excerpt for them. And when we finally finished, I found out that a lot of them, if not all of them, were all from my home island. And they came up to me and they were just like, Emerald, are you really from Kushai? And I'm like, yeah. I was like, wow, an actual Kushian is on stage touring, representing Kushai or representing the islands. And to them, a couple 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, probably 12-year-olds, if not younger, they were all so proud. You could see something in them light up, that they were like, oh my goodness, someone is actually out there representing us. And since that day, I didn't care what we have in the background. If we don't have our sail up, if we didn't have lighting, if we didn't have great lighting, even though we always do, thank you, Joni. Whether like if nothing works, I already know that if we're able to perform what we just did to the audience, it will still click. We don't need that fancy stuff back there. It's the storytelling, and that's what a lot of these kids grew up with, the storytelling, and most importantly, our representation. I mean, those little kids came up to me and they go, Emerald, you're from Kushai? Are you representing us right now? Like, thank you so much. That boom, I mean, I was so proud. I was so happy. They were proud to see, they were so happy and full of gleam to like see an actual Kushian, a real live islander, and along with all the other my other cast members who are also islanders up there on stage. And it takes as little as telling a story to like spark something in these kids. And a lot of them told me, it's like, you know what, thank you so much, because of this I want to do something in drama, or I want to go and tell stories. And I still hear from these kids until till today, actually, if not a couple of days from now. They still reach out to me when they see posters or when they're on Facebook or they're on any social media, and they see our story out there, or they see either something good or something bad about Micronesia. They write out and they say, hey, are you guys still doing your show? I remembered when you guys came out to us and you guys told stories about Micronesia. And it only took probably that small 8-minute clip that we showed, which it broke my heart. I wish we were able to show them the whole, like that whole hour play. I just wish we were able to do the whole play for them. But just the fact that we were able, just that 8-minute excerpt that we did sparked something in these young kids, these young adults, our future leaders, you know. So from this, since then on, I've always, even before then, I believed in representation. But since then, since that interaction I've had with those kids, representation is all I ever do. I mean, I go around, I tell people I'm from Kushai, I'm from an island, I was born and raised in Micronesia. I mean, I represent wherever I go. I love wearing my island skirts because it tells where I'm from. I'm from the islands. I'm from Kushai. I represent, and I hope that all these young adults do the same thing. Which I, just like Jason, I've been saying that since this show has been out there, and even that one experience I had with those kids, they
I just
can do something to you, and they did something.
I just wanted to add some background to what that experience, Emerald. University of Hawaii in Hilo had brought us out to do the full show, and they got a call from the ESL teacher at Kealakehe Intermediate in Kona, which is all the way on the other side of the island. And the big island is actually really big, so they could not figure out how to get a bus. If they got a bus and came to see the show, they would have had to overnight or something. It would have been too much. So the teacher just kept asking and asking, and we're like, okay, well, after we close the show, we'll do a day trip over to Kona. And so we did a mini residency with them. We did some workshops, and we did this excerpt in the music room. And the reason why the teacher had been calling us is because there had been a conflict between the Koshrai, because there's a large Koshraian community there. And there were some serious conflicts that had gone on to the point where the police had to get involved. And that's why they really wanted us to be there. So you being there, Emerald, was really important healing for them at that time as well, because those youth were going through a lot. And that's why we made the trip, and are so thankful that we did it. Yeah.
They healed me too. I was very thankful we did that.
And then Jermaine, I think Marie Ren wanted to know your experience as a high school student, and we came in and started doing this work?
Oh, so as a high school student, you know, in high school you get pressured by wanting to fit in. So identifying as Micronesian, it was I wasn't as confident. I wasn't as confident until I met these people, because my junior year I felt so proud of who I am after rolling with them for a while, and I was like, yo, I can do anything. I joined in Hawaii we have May Day, where all these different cultures come and dance for the school. And junior year, senior year, I joined these things. I felt proud to represent who I was. Then after high school, when we got into touring, it was a cool experience, because I didn't realize how diverse the United States was. When we went to San Fran, I saw so many mixed people, so many different cultures. I was like, dang, Hawaii needs this. We need all these different people. And when we went to the university there was a lava ceremony, and they welcomed us to San Fran. We all sipped a little coconut full of kava, and it was cool. I didn't know that was my first time being a part of a kava ceremony, first time being treated welcomed in such a sincere way. When we went to Minnesota, the Micronesian community in Milan, it was so like heartwarming to have them sing a song for us, to just like I don't know how to explain it, but it was just beautiful how talented their voices are. And then they're a community. It's not like they're a school choir, you know what I mean? So the fact that they sang for us was beautiful. The people that welcome us in the theaters there, they're beautiful. It was amazing. The journey's been amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I was at that performance when the community from Milan came, and I mean, yeah, it was the performance was so powerful that it brought the audience to song. Like that's they wanted to give back and all, and like share in this performance experience. So yeah, it was so memorable. So we have a question from Monique in our audience. What are some of the other stories that didn't make it into the play that you wish that you wished could be shared?
I can answer that too. Um, in our first play or show, we had to explain how families and students will navigate from the outer island to the main island just for school, and people don't understand how much it takes for families to really you know take them to a different level of education. And how during that time there was like a lot of conversation saying that our community do not value education, do not even understand the educational system, how important that is. But to tell it in that way, how it takes days and months for us to travel overseas to reach island to island just to go to high school. I mean, going on the ship is not an easy thing. For many days you're going to be traveling on the ocean. You finish your food just as from the first day, because you travel how many days, how many hours on the ocean, and it's not like it's a smooth sail. You run into storm, you run into whatever, get all your clothes be wet and your food run out. But as you go from different island to different island and identify yourself and know that you have relatives on those islands, and then they will come out from the boat on the boat and give you dry clothes and food to continue that journey. They are contributing to your journey to finish your education and go far. And it's not that we don't value education. We take miles and storms to be where we are, and we are resilient people, and we will continue to stand in whatever that comes at us, because we want the best for the next generation. Always the next generation is important to make sure that they know where they come from and know where they're going. And so telling all these stories is also valuable, because regardless of where you are, your connectivity to your own heritage and your own identity is surely empowering wherever you at.
I think there's a whole lot that we can touch on, can expand more on the climate change effect on our islands, and the value of women in our culture. I think even with our young ones growing up outside of Chuk or Micronesia, there's that confusion of women, that notion of women not having a voice or not having a place in decision making. And that's completely not true. Women are at the forefront of decision making. We are the landowners. And just because women in our culture don't have to be loud, just our presence alone says a whole lot. Our presence alone can stop a war. And I think that's something that I wish we could really touch more on.
That's Masters of the Currents Part 2.
Right, because like in 1 hour, what can you really accomplish, especially in terms of representing a community that has not been represented in this way. We've been hearing so many like powerful stories and testimonies, and I wanted to close out, or we start wrapping this up. But why is this? I mean, we've talked a lot about the importance of the work and how much this has impacted the Micronesian community. So can we talk about like how we see the arts or theater or storytelling as a way of creating change? Like I've heard a few things like, young people are speaking up more, and they're saying, you can't talk to us like this. You can't talk about us like this. Are there other things that we have seen, or other things that we hope for in terms of the impact and how this can create change?
I think for me, and then when we met prior to this about a lot of the anti-Asian hate that's going on right now, I just want to lift up how much hard work that Senta and her colleagues have been doing, and Jayceline, around the type of discrimination that the Micronesian community has been feeling in Hawaii since the beginning of the pandemic. And Senta reminded me, we in the full play, we actually have kind of didn't stage a whole funeral, but it takes place at the funeral. And the funeral, Senta taught us that the funeral of someone is a place where cultural practices can be taught and passed on to the next generation. And there's a lot of cultural misunderstanding between teachers who don't understand why parents are taking their children out of school to come to these events, to come to a funeral. So funerals are just, I learned that, please talk on this if you feel comfortable. I'm trying to lift it up. amplify it in a way that I just learned so much, you know, and as someone, as the creators of trying to create the work and structure the work, I'm like, am I really putting a funeral in a children's play? But because of what I learned from Inocenta, I was like, okay, yes, we have to. And even before the pandemic, I know the sacrifice that our cast members were making just to show up to rehearsal or a show, because like in our world of theater, you know, the show must go on. And, you know, they had to say, you know, when we could make allowances, you know, if rehearsal time, we can make up rehearsals, but if it's a show, we have to have the show. And I know the sacrifice that our cast members were making to be there. And that was even before the pandemic. And there were, because the community comes to Hawaii for health reasons, unfortunately, there were funerals already happening before the pandemic. And with the pandemic coming, there's been a lot of targeting and blaming on the Micronesian community because of the struggle to keep these cultural practices alive throughout the pandemic. Creates a problem with trying to you know, keep in quarantine. So there's a lot of pain around. I don't want to speak for you, Inocenta, but I also don't want to put you on the spot to talk about this if it's too personal right now. But I just want to lift up that cultural practices are being lost when you can't have these cultural practices, and that's particularly painful. So we hope that our show in a small way helps people. Small and big ways, helps people understand that these cultural differences.
Yeah, thank you very much, Leilani, for lifting that. And it's truly it's truly important to portray, especially that part of the funeral, because it also not just it just, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm kind of all over the place, but for one thing, it reminds our community to continue to practice it, because even in the hardship of making it possible, this is where our children reconnect back to their culture, to value what it means to reconnect with family. In death, everything's supposed to be abolished. Like if you have challenges with other family members and you're against for a long time, but when you come together in funeral, you forget all of that and forgive each other and try to renew the relationship. And that's is also a place where our younger youth learn how it means to do their role and responsibility and step up. We talk about how, you know, during these funerals too, like they change into their traditional skirts, and then they're serving their elders, and they're doing all those interaction and make it possible to have the event happen, because they are the hands and feet for our elders. And learning that during funeral is very important. And with our families that are gone from home for a long time, sometimes it's hard to balance it, because it becomes all about money, but it's really all about relationship, rebuilding and renewing that relationship. And it also goes so far. $1 goes so far. And you know, it's funny that some of the kids that are watching from outside and like from a different community, I remember a Filipino kid that asked, Auntie, why do you guys go for $1 for a lunch plate at funeral? And you know, to just have a conversation with him to explain, actually it's not that we go for that food, it's the fact that you pay your respect during those time of funerals, and you renewing your relationship with people. The food that you get is just a small token of saying thank you for coming and be present with us and sharing this experience. And so the dollar is actually doesn't make any difference, but it's just like you contribute. And sometimes we have like thousands of people that come to pay respect, and that still help with paying the the funeral expense that here. But during this pandemic, I'm really sad to say that one of the cultural practice that is is missing is because of this quarantine, that I have uncles and cousins and relatives that I couldn't even show up for their funeral, but it still needs to happen. And yet we learn to try to be to practice still what is very important to us. And to go on Zoom for funeral is just kind of funny and crazy, but it must be done. And so I we learn to adapt and learn from all of this experience. But the fact of the matter is that relationship that you learn and continue to um, mold it during those period is very important and valuable during those period of mourning. And so, yeah, thank you, Leilani, for sharing it.
Yeah, it's so important to learn about each other's cultures and to gain that better understanding of each other, so that we can be kinder to one another, so that we can, so yeah. Um, I'll also say, I'll mention that in the chat, Kathy says, also at funerals, we're learning about how we're related to other people from different islands, which I think is, yeah, that's powerful. It's powerful to find that your family is bigger than you thought it was. Um,
And
so,
that's what happened when we went to Milam, and we found like relatives that we haven't seen for a long time, and that the connection is just amazing. Like for you to be touring and then run into people that you know that are intercontinent, and I'm like, you're here? When did you get here? It it just it's just so important to renew those relationship. And um I wish we can have our clan as our last name, but it's not possible in this time to really be identifying like which clan do you belong to, because that's also part of our culture where we see our connection. Exactly what Kathy is saying, those are valuable moments to reconnect with relatives from all across.
thank you. Thank you. We have run out of time. I can't believe how quickly all this time passes. So getting so engrossed in your stories and what you have to share. But quickly, if you can possibly, there is there what is next for Masters of the Currents, and then we'll close it out. Leilani, Ova.
We are waiting until it's safe to gather because we really would love to do the show live, especially in talking with Visions and Voices. We had, oh, sure, we'll do the online version of the show. But then we realized those live interactions is the point of the show. And because here in Southern California, there's such a large Pacific Islander community, including the Micronesian community, that we would really like to be able to do it live and invite everybody to come and see it. Also because Ova and I are based in LA, and even our friends here haven't necessarily had a chance to see the show live. So that's going to be sometime in the next season, we hope. And we right now are planning to go to Utah, to the University of Utah in the fall. So assuming it is safe to gather and perform live, we will be back touring again next season. And also we hope to return to Hawaii in May of 2022 to be part of the National Asian American Theater Conference and Festival. And it'll be our opportunity to bring the production back to Hawaii. And after that, we don't know. We're still trying to figure out where we can take the show to.
We are hoping to. We're in conversation with artists and supporters in Guam, so we are hoping to bring the show to Guam, and that will be 2022 as well, hopefully. So those are some exciting things to look forward to, and live performance is powerful.
Yeah.
So
Yes, to everyone in our audience, go back to live performance when it is safe. It is really what keeps the arts alive. So thank you all. Thank you, Emerald Rose. Thank you, Mama Ino. Thank you, Leilani and Ova. Thank you, Jaceline, and thank you, Jermaine, so much for being here and sharing so much of yourselves. And I can't wait to have a chance to see the show again. So to all of you watching and chatting with us on Zoom, thank you for being here. And that's it. We'll see you all soon, hopefully. Thank you so much.
thank you.
You.
Voices, awesome. Thank you, Marie Ren, Daria.